Y106. This is week 8 and we are working through unit 8. I'm skipping around a little bit in here. This unit does deal with adding pedal. That is something that we are going to do in class together, talk about pedal technique. If you are not in class, there will be a video posted next week with pedal technique. Pedal technique will be a part of your exam too. For this week, we're talking about taking our 5-finger patterns and expanding them to a full scale. So to expand that, here was my original pattern of tonic, whole, whole, half, whole. I'm adding on those last 3 steps of whole, whole, half to span that octave, or going from tonic to that duplicate tone. For right now, we are not putting fingerings in. That's our next step after this exam too. And I prefer that you do them, as your book suggests, in a tetrachord fashion, instead of perhaps doing a fingering that's wrong. Tetrachord fashion means that they want you to split it between your hands, taking 4 of the notes with your left and 4 of the notes with your right. It really doesn't matter if you prefer 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 through 2, or what combination that you do it in, just as long as you're splitting it between your hands. So if I was to build a D scale, tonic, whole, whole, half, bring your other hand in, whole, 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 half, and then practice going down. I would take this around chromatically. You could go up the white keys, you could go around the circle of fifths. Add it to your technique patterns as we've been doing in class. So the beginning of this unit 8 is talking about this tetrachord pattern. They give you some keyboards if you want to practice drawing them in. I think it's much more worthwhile to practice playing them. They give you some patterns that you can do some duet work with. We will not be doing that. Please put them in any pattern that you want to practice. So with the beginning of this unit, understanding how we're putting this major scale in the tetrachord pattern is the main emphasis. Then I'd like you to turn over to page 115. This is your harmonization that we'll be working on this week, and it is another two-handed style. So just like we did this past week, remember that two-handed style means you are not playing that melody line, you are playing the left hand. Please do not put the pedal in this week. I want you to concentrate on the coordination of the hands. This two-handed harmonization style is what's called a waltz bass. So similar to the boom chuck, your left hand is going to play the root of the chord on beat 1. This should stay in E minor. This should stay a B major. They just didn't repeat the letter names. Your right hand then plays the full 3-note chord that's being asked for on beats 2 and 3. Remember, since it's not written out, you can put it in any register you want. You're also welcome to use inversions if you wish in that right hand. I advise you to stay out of the range of the melody. That's what's going to give you the best texture. So work through it the same way that we did this past week in class. Practice building just the core chord first. So for E minor, I'm going to have my root in my left and build that chord in your right. Tonic, minor third, perfect fifth. Then look at your next measure, E diminished. So remember, diminished means that it's my minor chord with the 5th being dropped. So all I'm changing is that top note. Notice how I'm just practicing it blocked. Then it's back to E minor. That 4th measure where they don't give you a new chord would be E minor again. Measure 5 is asking you to go to B. Notice there's no M, so it's a major chord. So the root is going to be B. You could pick up your hand and move it. Major 3rd, perfect 5th. If I wanted to for my E minor, I could think about an inversion. B, D sharp, F sharp. Who can stay? Who is the closest to D sharp? Who is the closest to F sharp? So if you'd like to use an inversion there, you certainly can. Going on to measure 6, then they ask you for a C major. Measure 7's back to a B major. Once you've figured out how you want to voice those chords, whether it's root position or inversions, and you can go through it keeping your beat steady blocked, then it'll be very easy to put it into that waltz bass of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And as I said, don't worry about the pedal this week at all. This harmonization is the harmonization that will be on your exam next week. We'll be adding pedal detail into it during our class period. For your piece, we'll be working on Dream Echoes this week. This is also the repertoire piece that we'll be getting ready for that second exam. When you have a piece with pedal, I always encourage you to learn it without pedal first, and so that's how this first week's work should be. This piece is all legato. You need to learn to do the legato with your hand so that the pedal is enhancing it. Pedal is not there to play legato for you. So when you are in class, I will be very strict about please do not put the pedal on yet at this time. As you look through Dream Echoes, I want you to come up with a plan or a roadmap, just like we talked about with the pieces we've had the last couple of weeks. Looking through it, I can see that it's not sectionalized. It's a sequence of the same intervals going at different key levels. So the very first thing you should do would be to take a pencil and mark for yourself where the key levels are changing. So I can see I'm starting in a G position. It's skipping down to E, skipping to C, skipping to A. So arrows down, arrows up, the word skip, much more effective than writing E, C, or A. Once you have your roadmap, then practice moving right between all those switches and block it together. So look at how the big picture of the interval fits. I've got both hands doing intervals of 5. At measure 5, I'm moving down a third to E, and it's still intervals of 5. Notice the next time I move at measure 9, they are both intervals of 5, but they are not the same pitches. So make sure you catch that the left hand's going down by a skip, my right hand's going down by a fifth. As I move to measure 10, again, the intervals of 5 are staying, but they're going out in contrary motion. They're flipping roots. Measure 11 takes me back in. Measure 12 takes me back out. Measure 13, I am moving to D, and notice with the right hand, left hand, your hands are alternating. I'll let you figure out the roadmap for the second page on your own. Once you can go through that and you aren't having to second guess where you're moving, then it will be very simple to arpeggiate that fifth out and put the melody that is the tagline at the end of each of those melodies. Again, I'm looking for smooth sound, and I'm looking for changing between the positions without breaking your tempo. Those are the first steps that we need to get in there before we have any thought of adding the pedal in. We'll talk about proper pedal technique in class. We'll talk about effective ways to pedal and to enhance a piece in class as well. This is getting us ready for your exam 2, which comes during week 9, in which this repertoire piece needs to be complete with articulation, dynamic, steady tempo, and pedal. The reading that you have for this week can be found on 118 and 119. These are all working on extending our intervals, whether they're augmented or diminished, lots of sixth, extended positions, some new rhythms. As you're reading, use that left hand to read by interval, read by chord structure. The slowest type of reading is note name reading. So see if you can look at, for instance, number 3 on page 119. Before I even play it, I'm looking at that left hand going, it's a fifth, it's a sixth, it's a seventh. Which note's staying the same? Which end of my hand is moving? I now have the game plan before I even have to worry about where that pitch is going to be. Be careful of your meters that are an 8, that I can clearly hear that 8th note as a solid beat. You can have your choice here for our quiz 6, any of these 4 sight reading on 118, 119. So that's what you should be concentrating on this week. Finding all your major scales in a tetrachord position. the two-handed harmonization in a waltz style, Dream Echoes, which is a substantial piece, which is why we're taking 2 weeks to learn it. Please no pedal this week. And then sight reading on 118, 119. Your quiz 6, uploaded by Friday, please, needs to be your choice of any of these sight reading on page 118 or 119. I look forward to perfecting Dream Echoes and your harmonization. We'll have 2 weeks worth of class to get that ready for that exam that will be due on October 30th. Thanks.